Hello and welcome back to a very special episode of In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today is Friday, September 12th, 2025. It's episode 86 of this show, and we have an absolute mega fight going down tomorrow. It has been a very long build-up. This fight was first announced or confirmed or revealed, whatever. Seems like we were getting the fight happening in around, I think, February or March time. And it's September 13th, and that always felt so far away. Like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, Canelo's got to beat Skull by then. We'll see if Crawford has another fight. Something's going to happen. It's just super far away. Yeah, we'll keep on talking about it, but we're not really thinking about it right now. And now it's here. And this fight week has been crazy. It's just, I think that they've done a really good job. I don't feel like there's too much stuff going on. But we're now, I think, about 40 hours away, 36 to 40 hours away from Canelo and Crawford fighting and us having a winner. And it's weird because I keep on thinking about this fight and who's going to win it. And I'm not even realizing, I'm just thinking, oh man, this is going to be such a great fight. And I wonder who's going to win. I'm not thinking about someone's going to lose. We're going to see Canelo lose again. Or we're going to see Crawford lose for the first time. That's crazy because these feel like things that a year or two ago, we didn't know if we'd ever see these two lose again until their final fight, which, you know what, this could be their final fight. I think Canelo's going to go on. I think that there is a chance that if Crawford wins this fight, he retires. But we're going to see. But you clicked on this video, you saw the title, Canelo versus Crawford, my final prediction. And for my final prediction, who I think is going to win the undisputed super middleweight champion, I'm thinking I think Terence Crawford is going to do it. I've been thinking this for the past few weeks, and I'm sticking by my take, and there's multiple reasons. Number one, and I know people are saying, oh, whatever, it is the weight, and I think that could still be a factor. Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez are the same size. They are. When you look at them now, Terence Crawford is both beefed up so much. If I'm going to be honest, I thought Canelo looked pretty lean at that press conference. Obviously, Crawford may go down a little bit in weight after they make their 168-pound cut. I wouldn't be surprised. I would also not be surprised if he stays at that weight, if he even weighs more. I know the big concern is, okay, yeah, Crawford looks like he's going to be the same size as Canelo, but it doesn't matter, the size. I mean, look at Jermell Charlo. He was way bigger than Canelo, and he fought terribly. So it's the question of, can you fight with that amount of weight? Are you still as fast? Can you still move as much? How are you doing with all that extra weight on your legs? How can you still fight? So that's the big question. And to be honest, we're not going to know that answer until the fight starts, how Crawford looks at 168 pounds. We can see his physique. Physique doesn't matter. What matters is how it affects his, performance in the ring. And we don't have those answers yet. But I'm thinking that knowing Crawford and how dedicated he is and how talented and skillful he is, I think that he's still going to figure it out. Now, let me tell you this. I do not think that Crawford's going to knock him out. I do not think either of these guys are even going to get knocked down because we've seen, neither of them have ever been knocked down before. I think it stays that way. I think we go the distance because as much as I can see, as much as it's hard to see them both losing, I really cannot see either of them getting stopped. I really can't. I mean, when you look at Crawford, again, it's just that he is moving up in weight. And Canelo is one of the greatest chins ever. It's like, I can't imagine Canelo getting stopped. And then you look at Crawford, and people are saying, well, Canelo's going to be bigger. Crawford's never been hit by somebody who is as big or as strong as Canelo. Well, when was the last time Canelo stopped anybody? It's been 4 years. So it's hard for me to sit here and say, oh, yeah, Canelo's going to knock him out. No, I don't think that Canelo can knock him out. I don't. He couldn't knock out William Skull. He looked terrible against William Skull. That's another one of the reasons. Both their last performances, neither of them looked good. But I thought that Crawford was fighting much better opposition, and I think that Crawford probably had a better performance and did more in that fight than Canelo did against Skull. I know that it wasn't really Canelo's fault with how boring that fight was with the, with the movement from Skull, but Canelo had lower output. Canelo was barely throwing. It was an atrocious watch, and I thought that he looked older. I thought that he looked slower. And I thought that he wasn't throwing as much as he usually does. And maybe that was him kind of trying to preserve himself because he knows he has a bigger fight this year. And that's another thing is Crawford's inactivity. But I think that honestly, I don't even want to read into his inactivity too much just because he's been so inactive for so long. And yet he still produced his best performances during this period of inactivity where he fights once a year. So, I've seen a lot of people say maybe this is his way of preserving himself, and he keeps himself in tip-top shape. He's not fighting 3 times a year getting beat up. He's going out there and he's getting stoppages. So he's only fighting a handful of rounds every year, getting in and out clean. Maybe he's able to, at 37 years old, being able to hold on to his top shape and still produce these big performances. So I don't know. It's a crazy fight. I can't believe we're finally here, but I am picking Terence Crawford win by decision. I think that it'll likely be like a 116, 112, 117, 111 type ordeal. I don't know if we'll say he wins every round, but I do think that whoever wins here, it's going to be clear who won. It's not going to be we get to the end and it's like, oh man, this is a draw. I think that someone is going to pick up this fight and win it, and I think that is Crawford, as crazy as it sounds. I think that he will be a 3-division undisputed champion. I really do. It's unbelievable what we're doing here, and that this fight is a true possibility. But man, I cannot wait for it. Tomorrow night, Las Vegas, 70,000 people are going to be there just about on Netflix. It is going to be such an attraction and such like a spectacle. I can't wait. And I'm really glad that they've set this up. I thought Fight Week's been good. They've had a lot of stuff going on. 2 different Fight Week cards, which we'll talk about a little bit later on the show. The Inside the Ring show, which we'll talk about. The press conference last night was good. Started a bit too late for me. I thought it was fun though. Some interesting questions posed, which we'll get to. But without further ado, let's talk about this undercard, and then let's talk about what else we got going on this weekend. So the undercard, what I think should be the co-main event, Christian and Billy, Lester Martinez. This fight is guaranteed to be an action, all action war. I don't know if I say somebody gets stopped. In fact, I think it probably will go the distance. But these two are both undefeated, big KO punchers. Absolutely, someone's always got to go, and we're gonna have a tremendous fight. This is for the WBC interim title. I hate that it's only 12 or 10 rounds. I don't know why it is. I'm guessing this is more Lester Martinez because I don't believe he's ever had a 12-round fight before. Maybe they agreed to this fight as 10 rounds and then decided to also put the WBC interim title. But this is now the 3rd WBC interim title fight in the last year that's been agreed to for 10 rounds, and I really, really don't like that. I think it's stupid to have even an interim world title fight only be 10 rounds. I think they should all be 12 rounds if it has world in the name of the fight. Anyways, I think it's a great fight. I think Billy wins it. Now, I say that, but I think that it is very possible Martinez can get the upset. I think this is like a 60-40 kind of fight. I just have to roll with Billy because that's my dog, and I do believe that he is a really, really good fighter. And again, Lester Martinez, he's shown to be very good in the ring, but he has so many issues outside of it with his health where I got to wonder if that's going to catch up to him at some point. So, we'll see how it goes, but man, this is going to be a good fight, and I'm picking Billy, but either way, this is going to be like a 96, 94, 95, 95 kind of fight. The actual co-main event, Callum Walsh coming back to take on Fernando Vargas Jr. This one had a little bit of a fiery face-off, and I realized, oh man, I am excited for this fight. Callum Walsh is very fun to watch, as is Fernando Vargas Jr. However, I think there is a little bit of difference in the skill level. I think this is also a bit of a big name for Callum Walsh to fight, as well as a big stage to put him on. He is Dana White's boxing guy, and I think that Callum Walsh is going to win this fight. It's hard to say if I see him winning it inside the distance. I don't know if I would say that. It'll probably go the distance again, but I do think that he wins this fight, and I think he's going to win it pretty clearly. I do think Fernando Vargas Jr. is good, but I think that Callum Walsh is a lot better, and that's just what it comes down to. Sergey Boachuk, Brandon Adams too. Really good fight. I think Boachuk wins. Honestly, he could win inside the distance, but again, I don't even want to say that he does just because Brandon Adams was the only guy who stopped Boachuk in the past, and Brandon Adams, he came in the presser saying, everyone's calling me an old man. I ain't old. Look how good I look. And that's true. He's in great shape, so that's why it's hard for me to say, he's going to get stopped. This time, even though Boachuk stops everyone, he didn't stop Michael Fox last time out, which I thought was a little bit telling of, now that he stepped on competition, can he still stop him? So we'll see, but I do think Boachuk wins this rematch. I'm very confident in that. Ivan Ditchko, Jermaine Franklin. Again, a stoppage is questionable just because Jermaine Franklin's really tough. He's gone a full 12 with Anthony Joshua and Dillian White. I think Ivan Ditchko wins this fight, though. He's another one of these heavyweights that's just been under the radar and waiting for a big moment, and here it is. Steven Nelson versus Reiko Santana. Expecting Steven Nelson to get a good big win there, probably a knockout. Muhammad Al-Akel is back in in a 10-rounder against Travis Kent Crawford. I don't understand why this is 10 rounds, except for the fact that they're putting it on the Netflix card because Turkey wants to beef up, his Saudi Arabian prospect. But Al-Akel has been fighting 6-rounders. Crawford has had one 8-round fight. That's it. And everything else has been 6 rounds or less. There makes absolutely no point for it to be a 10-rounder, except for the fact that, it's on a big card. It should be a longer fight. I don't think it's time to step up Muhammad Al-Akel to that level, especially when you look at the fact that he's not actually fighting that level. They're just extending the rounds. But, I would have been fine with this being 6 rounds or even 8. It's just, I don't know. This is just weird that it's a 10-rounder. But you got some really good prospects on that card. Reito Tsutsumi, Marco Verde. Really excited to see both those guys back out. I'm expecting big performances from them both. They've both been really great pro careers so far. And then as well as Sultan Al-Mohamed. And this is his professional debut. He's a Saudi Arabian prospect again. So we're getting a few more Saudi Arabian guys. They also had somebody on their fight week card, Abdullah Darkazanli, who had a 3rd-round knockout. I was pretty impressed by him. He was actually the main event, I guess you could call it, of that card. So they've got a little bit more young talent coming from that country, which is big because, it's where Turkey's from, so he's going to want to promote them. But yeah, we've got a huge card on Saturday, 10 fights, and it's going to be good. But on Sunday morning, we have another undisputed championship, which is flying so under the radar. And I feel like it usually does with Inoue fight weeks, especially when it's during the same week as another, big event. I feel like Naoya Inoue typically fights like the same weekend as Canelo Alvarez. And when that happens, you're just not going to get as much attention, especially when it's Canelo versus Crawford. Kind of hard, And they're 2 days apart, and Top Rank is barely promoting it. We just yesterday found out that there will be a broadcast in the United States. We weren't sure, 3 days out from the fight. We didn't know if we'd be able to watch it. In the US and UK, they're going to stream it on their Facebook channel, which I'm like, huh? I don't understand why they couldn't just put it on YouTube or something, but hey, we can still watch it. I'm not going to complain. It looks like we're going to get the full main card too. As for my prediction, Naoya Inoue merge on Akhmadaliev. This is going to be a good fight. I think that MJ Akhmadaliev is absolutely the number 2 guy in this division. I think he's the most deserving of a title shot and has been for about a year, if not more. As for the fight itself, I think Inoue wins it. I think that there could be some more scary moments because I do think Akhmadaliev is very good. I think there could be another moment where it's like, is he going to, is he going to stop him? Or not stop him, but is he going to hurt him? Because Inoue has been dropped in, I think, 2 of his last 4 fights. So, it's clear that even though he's still a top fighter, he doesn't have the chin he once had. He's not the same crazy fighter as he once was. Even though he's still a 10 out of 10 fighter, one of the best in the world, I don't know if he's still in his prime. So, for him to take on MJ Akhmadaliev, who's still a very good fighter, I think that this could have some moments of competition. I think MJ is the best chance out of any of these guys at 122 hold the newly arrived Junto Nakatani to beat Naoya Inoue. But we're just going to have to see how it goes on Sunday morning. I'm picking Inoue to win, and I'm just a little bit tempting to say Inoue by stoppage. I think it's possible. I just don't know if I can see Akhmadaliev being stopped, but Inoue finds a way to everyone else. So I do think Inoue wins. I think there will be some moments of competition, but I think that he should win the fight, and I think he could even win it by stoppage. But I'm just going to say he wins it. But yes, we'll see. Yoshiki Takei versus Christian Medina in the co-main event. This is a fight that a lot of people are kind of picking against Takei in. Saying like, it's his time to get upset. I'm actually going to roll with Takei in this. We'll see if I'm wrong. But I was impressed by Christian Medina's last performance. I think actually both of these guys had first-round knockouts last time out, Medina's was in the second round, but Yoshiki Takei's was in the first round. And so I'm excited. I think that this should be pretty fun. I'm going to pick Takei just because I do think this is his performance to kind of show everyone, like, no, I am that good. When it was the Daigo Higa fight, everyone's like, did you really win that? And I think that a lot of his reputation kind of fell with that, and he's only had 1 fight since then. So I think that coming in and winning this fight against Medina would really, put his stock back up. You also have Yuni Takada versus Ryose Matsumoto for the WBA regular minimum weight title. I don't understand what the purpose of having 2 belts at minimum weight. Like, come on, guys. Obviously, Oscar Collazo does hold the WBA now super belt, and he'll be defending that next weekend against Jason Vason. So hopefully the winners of these fights will just fight each other. Takada is 16-8-3. Matsumoto is 6-0. I can't confidently say if I've seen either of these guys fight before, but judging off the records, I'm going to pick Matsumoto, but we'll just see what happens. And then you got some other good Japanese fighters on this undercard. So that should be a good one. I'm just really excited for MJ versus Inoue. And it's just a shame how little attention it's getting. But another card that I think is flying under the radar just because of the absolute size and scope of Canelo Crawford is another Dana White promoted event, and that is UFC Noche 2025. Diego Lopes versus John Silva. It's Brazil versus Brazil in the main event of the Mexico card, of course. But no, look, this is a really good fight. I think that these two were both big talking points of that UFC 314 card, and a lot of people are saying, they could fight each other. Had a little bit of a potential there, and John Silva has become the last hope for the fighting nerds. When back to his last fight, they'd been completely undefeated. They were a force to be reckoned with, and now two of their guys lost last week. Carlos Prates has come back from his loss, but he is no longer undefeated in the UFC. John Silva is the only member of the fighting nerds to still be undefeated, and he's taking on a very, very tough test in Diego Lopes. And while I do love John Silva, and I think that he could win this fight, I have to pick Diego Lopes. I still think he's very much a championship fighter. I don't know if he'll ever win a championship, but I think that he is still top 5 in the weight class. As for John Silva, he's got a big win over Bryce Mitchell, but we haven't really seen a whole lot else from him in his UFC career. I think this is going to be a war. I think it's going to be a tremendous fight, but I have to pick Lopes on this one. Co-main event, Rob Font versus David Martinez. Obviously, Rob Font was meant to be fighting Raul Rosas Jr., so this is a shame. I have to pick Rob Font, but I'm also very capable of going for an upset here. I could see that. Puerto Rico versus Mexico, that one should deliver. Rafa Garcia versus Jared Gordon. Kelvin Gastelum is back against Dustin Stoltzfus. Is Alexa Grasso not on this card? Okay, maybe she's not. But Tatiana Suarez is against Amanda Lemos. That's a top 4 women's strawweight championship. So obviously we have Jandiroba versus Dern next month in Abu Dhabi to decide that crown. The winner of this fight could be going up against them, so be prepared for that. But the other UFC Noche fight cards have been a lot of fun. I expect no different from this one. A lot of Mexican fighters on the card, so looking forward to it, and I think that it should be a good card overall and very intrigued in that main event. And then the other big card we have this weekend, another one, Lewis Crocker and Paddy Donovan finally running it back after their very controversial fight this past March. Obviously, Lewis Crocker got the win by disqualification. He was getting absolutely battered in that fight. However, Paddy Donovan was not fighting clean. He kept on, I think it was headbutting or hitting below the belt. He just kept on doing illegal stuff, and I think he had 2 points deducted, and it just wasn't going well for him. Besides the fact that he was completely dominating Crocker, he and the ref were not having a good time. And then the cherry on top, he hits Crocker after the bell, and he did. And as much as heartbreaking it was to see Paddy Donovan put on this performance of a lifetime and just make these mistakes in it that cost him that win and actually gave him a loss, I think that the loss obviously is a big asterisk next to it. And as does Crocker's win. But, you broke the rules. You hurt Crocker when you weren't supposed to. And you do have to get a disqualification for that. That's how it works. So I wasn't mad at the decision. It was just a crappy situation. Also because we didn't get a winner. Not really. So we do finally get that chance to prove it right. I do think that Paddy Donovan wins this fight. I don't think there's a way that you can pick against him. He was completely dominant over Lewis Crocker, won every single round on my card of that fight, was on his way to a stoppage, and I actually am of the opinion that had he thrown that punch 2 seconds earlier, he would have been, potentially world champion right now. Obviously, that wasn't for the title then, but he would have been mandatory for it. He would have been fighting for the world title regardless, and Lewis Crocker would not still be here. I think that Lewis Crocker was on his way out of that fight. Now, I do think that Crocker obviously he kind of got out free because he went in there, got beat up, and still got the win and has the chance to say, okay, well, now I know what's going to happen in the rematch. Now I can prepare and actually try and win. And I think that Crocker will be more competitive in this fight. I think that he'll change some aspects of his game, try and be more active, try and be more defensive, be more offensive, and just find a way and move around Paddy Donovan's pressure more. But I think that Paddy Donovan, should be able to win this fight. If not, it would look really, really bad. So I have to pick him. I was picking him in the first fight regardless, but I pick him to win this one probably by stoppage again, just because he looked worlds better than Lewis Crocker that night. I also think there's a chance that Paddy Donovan is coming in too confident, so you always have to be ready for that. But look, this is for a vacant world title. I can't believe this is a world championship, but yeah, so Paddy Donovan is going to be world champion alongside Rolly Romero and Mario Barrios, which is just what a terrible division welterweight is. And Brian Norman Jr. as well, who actually is a good world champion. I think Paddy Donovan is a good fighter, but it's just that's the state of the division. Co-main event, Ishmael Davis, Keyman Jarko. It's a really good fight, you know. I like that one a lot. This is a fight I feel like that we've been talking about happening for a long time. This is one that I am going to pick Ishmael Davis in. I think that he really should have already had this fight by now, again, just because I think it's been made before, but you know, then Ishmael Davis had those 2 appearances on reality season cards in, you know, last-minute fights, lost both of them to Josh Kelly and Sergey Bochuk, but can you really blame him? And Jarko, 17-0, not really a lot of notable names on that record besides maybe like Troy Williamson. That's really it. So, you know, I mean, this is, I don't know if this is a British eliminator or not. It should be. But I'm sure the winner of this will fight for something like that next. But this is a good fight. I'm going to pick Ishmael Davis in, but I'm very prepared to see a Jarko come in and make it a really competitive fight. But I do think Davis is overall a more complete and better fighter. You also have Tyrone McKenna versus Dylan Moran, too, on that card. They fought a little bit about a year ago. McKenna blew him out in 2 rounds, so a little bit odd they were doing a rematch. But hey, you know what? I'm expecting this fight, whichever way it goes, probably the way of McKenna, that it's just going to be a lot of fun and very entertaining and a war. So, hey, you know what? I'll take it. Rudon Farrell versus Matthew Borland. They're going to fight for over 10 rounds for the Irish Super Bantamweight Championship. Farrell's been on a lot of these Belfast cards, and he's had some good wins. So I'm looking forward to that one. I think that's on the prelims. You got Pat Brown back out against Austin Namdi, who's 12-5 with 10 KOs. So a lot of knockouts in his wins. So he does have the possibility to throw a big punch and test Pat Brown. But I think Pat Brown wins this in under 3 rounds, just seeing how he's been so far. He's been on a crazy run. This is his second 8-rounder and only his 4th pro fight. Yeah, he's doing good things. Molly McCann is going to make her pro boxing debut. Really crazy to me that they're actually, you know, that it seems like they're going to try and run her up the ranks. I'm not sure how quickly. She's making her debut over 6 rounds against Kate Radomska, who's 4-7. So, I mean, I don't know. She's not a spring chicken. She's 35. So I don't know how long they plan on spending to build her up. I think that with her, you just kind of got to do maybe a couple of fights like this and then just go. Like next year, you want to try and get her into some big fights because she's not 23 and has the future of her, the whole of her career ahead of her. You know, Aaron Bowen is back in another 8-rounder, hoping for another fun fight from him. You got Donna Kiri back, and you have pro debuts for Kyle Smith and Jim Donovan. So they're putting some local Belfast talent on that card. And I think it's a really good card, but I am definitely excited for that main event to finally have this answer resolved between the controversy between Crocker and Donovan last time. And then lastly, tonight we've actually got another card, and that is in Hollywood, Florida, BKFC 80, Perdomo versus Adams 2. This is obviously, you know, just running it back from their fight in July. Leonardo Perdomo versus Arnold Adams. Actually, a little bit interesting how quickly they've run this fight back. They just fought like literally 2 months ago, I think actually on the day. So I am kind of surprised that, you know, they got this fight over the line so quickly. As for what I think happens, I think this fight is pointless. I think that Perdomo, he did knock him out last time. He did win the fight. It was a little bit controversial. I understand that just because of the method of the knockout and the method of the timing and whatever, and what happened right before. Questionable if he hit him below the belt or something like that, or in the eye. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But I don't think it matters. I think Perdomo is a very, very dangerous fighter, and I think that he could be fighting for the BKFC title right now. I think that he beats Arnold Adams again. I think he probably does it in the 2nd or 3rd round. Like, I don't think this is going to be any different, and I just think this fight is kind of pointless. Co-main event, you, of course, have got Edgard Plazaola versus Gary Fox. That should be a pretty entertaining fight. I'm looking forward to that. Yoel Romero, though, is really the big talking point of this card, I feel. He looks like an absolute union at 38. He's fighting Theo Dukas, who's also making his BKFC debut. I don't really know much about Dukas. It looks like Yoel Romero is going to get a first-round knockout here. And after that, I'm expecting to see him soar up the BKFC roster. and I'm very, very excited to see him on BKFC. And yeah, he's probably the fight I'm most looking forward to on this card. You got some other good ones, but another fight I'm looking forward to. Kimbo Slice Jr. is finally back, although he's no longer on their website. So maybe he's actually not fighting, but I did see that he was meant to fight against, I think it was Derek Perez. So hopefully that fight's still on because I was looking forward to that. But if it's not, it's not. We still got a good card. All of BKFC cards at the Hard Rock in Hollywood are usually pretty fun. So very good weekend of combat sports ahead of us. And yeah, can't wait to start it tonight. But now that we've talked about the fights coming up, let's talk about some of the Canelo Crawford fight week stuff and the cards that we've had this week. We had 2 cards, one of which was last night. That was the more real card. And that was, of course, the debut of The Underdog, which is a new series that Ring Magazine is going to do. They said it's going to be actually every month starting in January. So that's when we'll have the next event, and they'll do it every month, probably in Vegas, in a place like the Fontainebleau. I'm guessing this is honestly very similar to like Most Valuable Prospects. But listen, we also heard Dana White talk about, yeah, I'm going to be doing my own version of the Contender Series for boxing in 2026. That's my thing. And then those fighters are going to graduate, and they're going to go on to the big Ring Magazine Turkey cards. And so I just find that to be very interesting that, we're doing, because it seemed like Dana White's role was going to be doing the super fights. And, of course, he's still involved with Canelo Crawford. But it seems now like what he's really doing in his own stuff is he's putting together the smaller cards to build the guys up, and then we're going to put them onto big shows. But, hey, you know what? I enjoyed a good amount of these fights. Obviously, in the main event, you had Anthony Olasquaga blowing out Juan Carlos Camacho Jr. in 2 rounds. I thought that was very impressive from him and honestly very well needed. He had a really controversial decision victory over Hiroto Kawaguchi in March, I believe it was. Left a kind of a bad taste in everyone's mouth, especially with flyweight becoming, honestly, probably the best of the lower weight divisions in terms of the competition and talent there. I think that he is holding a belt and he needed to show that he is a world-class fighter, and I think that he did that. Camacho, obviously I'd picked Olasquaga to win this fight, but Camacho came in and first round, a bit competitive, but Olasquaga won it. And then the second round, he just started battering him. And he didn't take Camacho down. Well, I think some people could have a bit of an issue with the stoppage. I personally did not. I thought that it was a very fair stoppage. I thought that, Camacho was not really defending. And for like literally over a minute, he was just getting beat up. I thought that Harvey Dock waited until he was absolutely sure. And then he stepped in at the right time. So I'm very okay with that stoppage. And, so he defends his WBO flyweight world title. And look, the fight that I would love to see, I'm not sure if it happens next. I'm just saying him versus Ricardo Sandoval for the WBC, the WBA, the WBO world flyweight titles in Los Angeles would do money. They're both from that area, I believe. That would make so much sense to do that fight. Like, come on. Obviously, Sandoval could be rematching Kenshiro Taraji. He could be fighting Galal Yafai, that fight's been ordered by the WBC. I'm sure the WBA is going to call him mandatory with him soon. Probably that's against Yankiel Rivera. I don't know. But the fight that I think that just would be a lot of fun is Sandoval versus Olasquaga in LA. So I doubt that happens next, but Olasquaga, I'm hoping to see him back in another big fight, and I'm really happy for him to finally, because he's been fighting in Japan, but he's American. He needs to have an American fan base, but to come over on a big fight week, get to headline on this new series, and get such an impressive win, very good for him. Co-main event there was Justin Valoria, who had a dominant 80-72 victory on all 3 cards against Joshua Fat Ortiz. He's a really good, solid prospect. Another solid prospect, Jalil Hackett, came back after his controversial loss last year to Roman Vasquez. Got a 3rd-round knockout over Elijah Vines, who was previously undefeated. Hackett looked really, really good, and I'm excited to see him get back in and mix it up with some good fighters. Honestly, what I think, put him back on that Philly card next month. I know that that's a quick turnaround. Obviously, Jalil Hackett was in like 10 rounders. I don't think you need to find him that good of an opponent. Throw him on the undercard. Put him in an 8-rounder. I don't care. I'd love to see him stay active, or even put him on the November 1st card in Orlando. The one with Pero and Thompson, get him a good fight then, because he spent way too long out of the ring, 9 months, and there's no reason. I mean, let's put him back in. We need to figure out what weight he's going to fight at, because he's still missing weight. This fight apparently was meant to be at 154. He thinks he was a bit heavier than that because he came in at 157, so I don't know what's going on with that, but once you figure out what weight he's going to fight at, you got to go, because this kid's really good. Emiliano Alvarado had a very good decision victory over Juan Garcia. pretty dominant over that fight. Both were undefeated. That was a pretty fun one. And then Jamar Talley opened us up with a unanimous decision win. Very, very boring fight that one was. And it was just kind of funny because the whole production of this, I thought it looked cool with like this graffiti thing. And I noticed it had some like old realities and fight posters in the background, which I thought was kind of cool. When you had, I thought that there were some aspects of it that was cool. The cool cars there, the people in the windows, it seemed like the shadows. I thought it was a cool production, and the ring looked solid. But the whole intro with like the punk rock people and the announcing, I thought that was so goofy. I felt like I was watching like some kind of like show. Like it felt very Vegas, like you're watching like I don't know, like a play or something. And it was just, I don't know, I thought that was a little bit too much. It took a while. And then they're reading out all these rules, like the underdog, only 50-50 fights, no running, take risks, don't leave it in the hands of the judges, come to fight. And then the first fight is a very, very boring jab fest. And it's like, wow, well, this is not what we were promised, was it? And then from there, I think it gets good. I think the rest of the fights were honestly solid. It was just a really rough start, I thought, to the program. And even the fights, the fight was meant to start at 11 p.m. It doesn't even start then until 11:30 is when the first fight actually starts because they had 20 minutes of delay. I mean, started way too late. The main event, thank God. Like, genuinely, I was so happy when Olasquaga finished him in the second round because the main event started at 1:45 in the morning here in the East, and I was like, dude, I gotta wake up tomorrow. Like, what are we doing here, man? Like, why is this so late? Obviously, I understand it's in Vegas, and it's not even as late there, but you also have to understand that in Vegas, they start everything a little bit earlier, events like this. The main card for, your typical Vegas pay-per-view starts at 5 p.m. there. This started at 8 p.m. and was finishing at like almost midnight in Las Vegas, which is unheard of for combat sports. I mean, this was ending way later than any UFC card. It was going to end at 3 a.m. had Olasquaga not gotten a second round knockout. So I was very grateful for that because I was tired. And look, I'm a huge boxing fan, but even I was considering, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. I may turn this off and watch it tomorrow. Like, it was ridiculously late. That's something that I hope that they finish, that they fix with the underdog in the future. I understand it's because they had to do it after the press conference and they had that in the evening too, which I don't know why that was in the evening. But, hopefully they can, in the next time, once these underdog events are just kind of on their own and not on the fight week of something else, they can just put it at like 8 p.m. in Vegas, or 5 p.m. in Vegas, I should say, and 8 p.m. here. Typical start times, especially because it's on a weekday. Yeah, didn't need to be doing all that. But, hey, we also had the open workout fight card. I mentioned Darcus Onley. I thought he looked good. Beck Nurmagomedov got a third-round stoppage, really just beat the brakes off of Steven Sumter, and then after 3 rounds, he quit. Good decision there. That was his first 10-rounder, so Beck is a very good prospect. He's now getting stepped up levels. He's been on some pro box cards and such, so he'll probably have a good fight on there soon. Brandon Leon went the distance again in his first 8-rounder. I thought that he was pretty good. Devontae McDonald was pretty competitive with him, but I still think Leon looked decent. Skylar Lacey and Yoendi Toirak had a draw. Skylar Lacey is the guy who fought Brandon Moore and fell through the ropes, and it was just a really weird fight with him on that Clarissa Shields card a few months ago, and then he comes in here against an undefeated Cuban heavyweight puncher, and he draws with him. So I thought that was pretty decent. He did a good job of honestly just keeping Toirak away and catching him before they clinch. So good done for him. And then Mikey Talon got a 6-round decision win, 2 knockdowns in there over Christian Robles. And I saw it, I was like, okay, I see. Obviously, he doesn't have a lot of knockouts. He's only had 1 knockout in his 10 fights, but I can see that he does have the power. I would just like him to maybe find a way to use that power more because he looked very, very strong and he had 2 big knockdowns in that fight. But I think it's cool that Turkey's putting on these, undercard fight week cards to kind of beef up the Ring magazine. And yeah, it's been fun. But moving on from there, let's talk about some news. There was a meeting earlier this week to discuss the changing of the Ali Act to make reforms to it. It did not go well in terms of making any changes. I think it was everyone was against it that was at the meeting. So that's good in terms of the fighters. And then, obviously I'm not too surprised. I'm not really bothered too much with the meetings until something actually changes. We know Dana White is wanting to change it. The best and most interesting part of this story is yesterday at the press conference, Sean Zittel, I think is his name, a good boxing reporter, comes up and just asks Dana White. He's like, hey, So obviously you want to make changes to the TKO Act, or to the Ali Act with TKO. And, you say, oh, boxing's dead and stuff, but, most of I think he was like the top 5 highest gate in boxing have all come in the last 10 years. So why is that business broken? And you're instead trying to use your own business, which is $375 million already being paid into class action lawsuits with 2 other lawsuits pending. Why are you trying to take that over when our business is making money? And I was like, dang, because, Dana White does have this thing where he keeps on saying, like, I've never seen a sport have so much money poured into it with nothing to make out of it. If you're talking about the global impact and the amount of fans it has, sure, but boxing makes its money back. I mean, he just said it. This event, he says that, and then he comes over to Canelo Crawford, and we're making a ton of money. And by the way, Dana White promoting, I think that Dana White, I hope that he doesn't get into his head like, I promoted Canelo Crawford and Mayweather McGregor. No, you were guest promoters on there. I'll tell you right now, if Dana White was not there, this event would still be just as big as it is. I really do think that. I think maybe it's helped like a little bit in terms of trying to get the UFC fans over because they've been advertising it to them and it is Dana White involved. But in terms of, I don't think this fight needed Dana White. I think they just threw him on there. Like, he hasn't really promoted it besides being at the press conferences and doing interviews this week to talk about it. Other than that, he hasn't mentioned it. He doesn't know anybody else on the card. He doesn't really seem to care about the fight that much. So I don't know, man. It's just a little bit annoying. But anyway, Sean Zittle questions him, and Dana White just refuses the question. And he does have a good excuse. He says, look, if you're going to come up here, ask a question about this fight. If you want to ask about that, we can do a separate interview. And I did like that. But Zittle wouldn't back down, First Amendment. And, he's going to ask his questions. This is what journalism is. This is pressing for the answers. And this is, he's allowed to do this. He's allowed to ask you these questions. And Dana White says, look, man, if you want to be an a-hole and you want to do all this, we can do an interview later. And he's like, do you have any other questions? And then he just says, Terence, Saul, good luck in your fights. He's like, that's it? Yep. I thought that was so funny. And good on him for stepping up to Dana and trying to ask these questions. And, hey, I hope he gets that interview. Anyways, the Ring Magazine launched their new show called Inside the Ring. And this is with Max Kellerman, who's fantastic. Mike Coppinger, who he's a good reporter, but he's not a great personality, and I hate how much he's on these shows, but he wasn't too bad here. He was saying stupid stuff. However, they were kind of making him the butt of the show. Max Kellerman was teasing him a lot, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. The only time we really had to hear him talk a lot was when they did Cops Corner, which I think was actually probably the best part of the show, where he gives us his latest scoops and tells us fights that are done deals and what he's hearing, and so we're about to talk about that. But, there's that, and then there's LaShawn Shady McCoy, who's a former football player. I don't understand why he's on here. I thought that he was fine. He seemed like a little bit, he had a little bit higher than a casual knowledge of boxing, but it just seemed like he was just kind of excited to be there. And then you had Ryan Garcia as a guest host, who I actually thought was a very good pundit and was very relaxed and very, very good at talking about the fights and being able to break it down. So I thought that he was actually really good. Obviously, he's not going to be a member of the show regularly. They're going to have a different guest every episode. But I thought that he was pretty good on there, and I do think the show has potential. I think that it was maybe a little bit long. I thought it was interesting. I was just them talking, and they, instead of having guests actually come on to the show, they just break it up with interviews with Max Kellerman. So I'm more excited to see, 2-3 weeks down the line what the show really looks like, because there's obviously a launch episode a little bit different. They got to interview Canelo, Crawford, Turkey, Dana, so maybe a little bit different than what we would usually see. So I don't know, but of those announcements that we were talking about, Mike Coppinger says that Lamont Roach versus Isaac Cruz is a done deal, and for December. We don't know what the date is. I'm hearing it could be somewhere in California, and this fight just doesn't really make sense. He says Lamont Roach would be coming up to 140 pounds for this, which I just don't see the point of. He's a 130-pounder. He came up to 135. If he wants to come up and stay at 135, he's more than welcome to. But he's got to vacate that 130 belt. And I especially think that once he takes this fight, the WBA will strip him. He hasn't defended that belt in over a year. So there's no reason for him to hold on to it when you have an interim champion and a whole division being held up. But yeah, it's just really interesting to me that he's now going to move up to 140 for that fight against Pitbull. I think it's a good fight on paper, and I think they probably will end up being about the same size because Pitbull is a small 140-pounder. He does hold a WBC interim super lightweight championship. Hopefully that's on the line for 12 rounds, not 10. But that should be a good fight, and I'm excited to see if it happens and how that one would go. He also says that he's hearing that talks between Errol Spence and Jermell Charlo are stepping up. Obviously, Jermell Charlo had his call-outs recently, and I would assume that this just kind of stems from that, but he's saying that the fight is actually being talked about, which is really good to hear, and I'm excited for that, man. I hope that these guys come back. It seems like they're both almost retired. They haven't fought in over 2 years, so I don't know what's going on with them. But, yeah, we'll just see. And then he also says that the Naoya Inoue, David Picasso, and Junto Nakatani will be in the co-main event of that on December 27th in Japan. We know that's happening. It's going to be announced this week. Turkey even said that they're announcing that card this next week. Obviously, they're just waiting until after Inoue Akhmadaliev to get that over the line. Once Inoue wins that, we'll be all systems ahead. That'll be in Saudi Arabia, December 27th. Inoue, Picasso, and Nakatani likely against Ramon Cardenas in what I think will be a WBA final eliminator. So that's a really good fight. And and so that'll be announced next week. So I like that aspect of the show, him coming on and saying what he thinks is, his latest scoop. So I like that. On to some other news. Anthony Joshua has dropped out of the IBF top 15. This isn't because he's not good anymore. It's because he's not active. And I have my own rankings, and I was like, it probably is time that once September 21st passes, he'll been active for over a year, no future fight planned. You have to take him out of the rankings. You have to. He's not active. He's no longer an active fighter. Obviously, as soon as he comes back in, he'll get re-injected into those rankings. But as of right now, when he doesn't have a fight booked, he hasn't fought in a year, we can't think, that he's we just can't call him a fighter right now. We can't call him active. So I'm not mad at them removing him from those rankings. Sean O'Malley versus Song Yudong is apparently in the works for UFC 323 on December 6th. I think that fight makes a lot of sense. Song Yudong's been looking for a next step after that weird Henry Cejudo situation. Sugar Sean needs a comeback fight, but still a good fight, and this is a great one. And I think it belongs on a pay-per-view. I don't think Sean should be fighting on a fight night. I think he could do very well on the undercard of a pay-per-view, and throw him in Vegas on that card, absolutely. The IBF have ordered a final eliminator between Ryosuke Nishida and Jerwin and Kajas at 122 pounds. Both these guys were at bantamweight recently. I think this is Nishida's first fight at 122. I'm not sure how long Kajas has been at the division for, but okay. Winner of this is going to be mandatory for Naoya Inoue's IBF title, and he'll likely get ordered to fight them relatively soon. I do think Nishida's very good, so I'm guessing, however, that Nishida will end up fighting for a vacant belt, because we know it's going to be Inoue Akhmadaliev, or then it's Picasso, then it's going to be Nakatani. And I don't think anything is going to get in the way of that. So either it's Nakatani versus Nishida 2 or Kajas. I shouldn't just cross them out completely. But because I do think that once Inoue fights Nakatani, I think he's going to move up to featherweight. I think he's done everything at 122. So, but we'll see. We'll see. Most Valuable Promotions has announced their Most Valuable Prospect 16 card. This is going to be in Texas. And this I find to be a very interesting card. All their prospects cards are weird because they're not just simply doing it at the, it's not just straight up prospects there. And it's also not fully at Crib Royale. They've now got, honestly, mini fight nights with this fight card is 2 world championships. Main event is going to be Lourdes Juarez versus Jessica Neri Plata for the WBC light flyweight world title. It's a very good fight. I think that Juarez is the champion, I'm guessing. I know that Neri Plata is at least a former champion, so that one's good. And then you've also got Desley Robinson versus Logan Haller. That's for a unified world middleweight championship. The winner of this should fight the winner of the fight on next Friday on the Salida card, because then I think you have all the middleweight titles and you could unify them between those two winners. But yeah, this is a 2 world title fights. Again, not big world title fights, just 2 lesser-known women's champions, but I'm totally down for it. Omar Juarez versus Omar Rosario in the co-main event on that. This is the most interesting fight to me. Sharetta Metcalf versus Crystal Rosado. So Crystal Rosado is kind of Amanda Serrano's young charge, her Puerto Rican prospect, and then Sharetta Metcalf was a world champion as of July 10th. And then she lost that, of course, to Shernika Johnson in an undisputed championship. I don't think Metcalf is that good overall in terms of like being a championship fighter. In fact, I could see her losing this fight, but I think it's a very, very quick and interesting step up for Rosado. They just said, oh, she's entered the top 15 with, I think it was the IBF, which makes sense because Metcalf did hold that belt. But this is a really interesting fight over 8 rounds. They're fighting men's rules for 3-minute rounds. Yolanda Vega returning as well after her loss to Holly Holm. Alexis Chop Chop Chaparro's back on this card. Alex Gueche is on this card as well. And as is Sebastian Juarez. So, again, really, really good prospects on that show, and I'm excited for it. MVP's putting together good stuff, and I'm hearing that Amanda Serrano could be also fighting on December 27th in Puerto Rico. That's the rumor, and she just started fight camp. So, we'll see what happens. Adam Azim has announced a new contract signing with Boxer in a historically dumb move. I don't get why he's still with them. Obviously, they're convincing him, like, yeah, dude, like, we're the right place for you. But, man, like, they are just, you're not getting a good deal. You're not staying active. They're giving you not good fights. Look at Dalton Smith, who was, like, your rival and stuff. Dalton Smith is fighting for a world title in his next fight, and you don't have a place to fight. So, hopefully, they can get him on the Eubank Ben undercard, but it seems like everyone is going to be on that card. I don't know, man. I feel bad for him, but this is just a really bad move. This was his opportunity to get out and go over to Matchroom or Queensberry. And I don't know why he's staying. I really don't. Gabriela Fundora is now going to be facing Alexis Kubicki on September 20th after Aylin Granadino had these issues. Listen, I'm going to be honest. I really don't even care that much because I think Gabriela Fundora is just going to win by stoppage anyways. And after this, I want to see her move up, go to 115. There's no other challenges left for her. 112, in my opinion. This will be her third undisputed title fight. Just go up to 115. Find new champions there to fight. I just don't think that there's a lot left for her in this weight division. Matchroom said that they have sent offers to both Lee Wood and Michael Conlon for a Josh Warrington fight. No, look, those 3 fighters, Warrington, Wood, and Conlon, I think that the next fight should be between 2 of them. I don't really have any interest in seeing any of those 3 guys fight anybody else, just because I feel like they're all at the tail end of their career and they've got great fights to go with each other to, close out their journeys. And that's really all that I care about. So I don't care even what it is. I don't care if it's Warrington Wood 2. I don't care if it's Wood Conlon 2. I don't care if it's Conlon Warrington. We need to see one of those fights happen next. Salida Promotions have announced they'll be back in Puerto Rico on Thursday, October 23rd. Going to be headlined by Joshua Pagan versus Malik Montgomery. Very, very interesting and good fight. I think Pagan probably wins that, but Montgomery coming off his first loss on an OTX card. That's a really, really good main event, and it should be good. Ashley Lozado, who's a very good prospect they have, is on that card as well. Nicolas Flaz is apparently out again. I don't know what it is with these Pro Box TV fighters just being plagued with injuries, but, Najee Lopez versus Calvin Henderson has now been upgraded to the main event on September 27th in Florida. Just a shame because I think that Nicolas Flaz is a great fighter, and he's just not getting to show because he keeps on getting injured, but hopefully he gets everything sorted out soon. He can come back. And then lastly, BKFC have announced their debut in Michigan with a fight night on November 1st. It's going to be headlined by Esteban Rodriguez versus Zach Cavender. Hopefully that's a good fight and a good fight card. Every year I think they're adding on a few more states to their calendar, so that's good to see that they're expanding because I do really have a lot of stock and faith in BKFC and what they can become. But that's all I've got for today. Again, huge, huge fight this weekend. Everybody enjoy it. Get your popcorn, get your drinks, enjoy an absolutely buzzing spectacle in Las Vegas. It is going to be crazy. I have my picks. Terence Crawford wins by decision. Let's see if it happens, but thank y'all so much for listening. Also, Netflix retweeted me, which is like awesome. I just thought that was super cool. Yeah, that was just crazy. I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, when I got the notification. But thank y'all so much for listening. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the fights and peace out.